Hello, and welcome to Focus on Fantasy Romance, episode 22, a podcast where we discuss books, genre, industry, and our geeky lives. My name is Paulina, and I'm here with Elle Klaus. Yay, wave at the group. A.R. DeClark. Yay! Okay, 2 waves. And Ishabelle Tori. Yay! All right. And today we're doing a book chat. I picked the book, so I am guilty. It's Rescued by Tordin, Olodia Alien Warrior Romance. Curvy, intelligent, and focused, Kyra Simmons has her eye on the prize. She's locked her sights on becoming the top technical engineer for the most prestigious space program back on Earth. That is, until her life and plans are turned upside down in an instant on board a maintenance space station. Stranded on the now failing space station, Kyra needs a miracle to survive. She has no idea that the foreign astronauts who show up to rescue her are out of this world, literally. Warrior Lord Tordin, Crown Prince of Olodia, knows he's outside of the mandates of the Intergalactic Alliance when he intercedes to rescue the survivors of the Earth space station. But there's something or someone pulling him in. He's not prepared for what he finds in the unassuming Earth female. Try as he might to stay away, the pull grows stronger and stronger to be with her. His mission depends on his ability to stay focused and be prepared. But that's almost impossible with Kyra and his sights and dreams. On the alien mothership speeding away from Earth forever, Kyra's biggest problem is not getting back to Earth. It's how not to fall for this alien warrior lord who's the actual man of her dreams. Can she find a way to realize her dreams of power and recognition now that she's been rescued by Tordin? Okay. So first we're all gonna kind of go on a round table and talk about what drew us in. Because we pick a book and then we all have to kind of agree on if we're gonna read it or not. This one was picked by me. Honestly, it wasn't the cover that drew me in, it's just a man's chest. Big deal. What really got me, I guess, was when I read the blurb and I was like, oh, this sounds like it could be kind of interesting. It's a plus-size girl. She's rescued by an alien and she's really smart. So, I was prepared to go into this really loving it. I don't read that many alien stories, I guess you can say. I read more non-space fantasy. So this was kind of outside of what I usually read, but it seemed like it was going to be interesting. So yeah, that's what drew me in, was just the fact that it was curvy, she was intelligent. I was like, ooh, cool, a strong female lead. Oh yeah, I totally forgot to name the author. Sorry about that. So it's by Mychal Daniels. That's the author. Sorry. All right. We're going to go around and talk about the blurb. Who wants to go first? Okay. Ish's first.
Okay. I actually do read a lot of alien fantasy, romance, and non-romance. I love sci-fi. When you picked the book, I was excited. It's a very good blurb. It has, everything, conflict, what needs to happen. Will it happen? It's a very good blurb. It's well written. It's wonderful. The cover, okay, yeah, it's just a naked chest, but it's a nice chest. So, but it's a professional cover. It's a professional blurb. It's a professional cover. It had a lot of ratings, and I generally don't pick a book by the ratings per se, but when I see a lot of people have read it, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe there's something here. So I was drawn in by first the cover because, a lot of people judge a book by its cover, and I do. Read the blurb, and it was good. I opened the Amazon preview. Yeah, I read a couple paragraphs, and it started off nice, simple. It gave me a time, a place, you know. So I found that a very good possibility for this book. I'm like, oh, you know what? Okay, we can do this. So I voted yes for the book myself. So I mean, just at first sight, it looked very promising. It was promising all the way around. So, Amy?
Okay, so I'm going to be 100% honest and tell you that I don't always read blurbs. I am a cover snob, and we all know. I can be really particular about certain things. I think the cover does look professional. It is what I would term typical sci-fi romance with the man's chest and you've got a planet. It tells me right away what the genre of the book is going to be when I looked at it. When Paulina basically suggested the book, I didn't necessarily run right to the blurb. I never look at how many reviews anything has or anything like that. The cover, I'm like, okay, that's professional cover. It says SFR to me. You know, it says it's an alien warrior romance. Makes sense. You know, the guy's got a lot of muscles on his chest. Okay. I did go and read the blurb after. It didn't really wow me by any means, but I like science fiction romance. I'm kind of open to read whatever. I don't have a whole lot of, you know, like really picky must-haves. If I'm going through to read the blurb, you know, I'm like, okay, whatever. It's science fiction romance. I'll read it. I'm pretty open about that. There are certain genres I don't read at all. Like I don't like contemporary romance. I don't like new adult. So, you know, I kind of don't even, but this is like, oh, it's science fiction romance. I like science fiction romance. Sure. So I upvoted it. I didn't know a lot about, you know, I didn't do a lot of investigating like Ish did and look at the, you know, sample or anything like that because it personally doesn't matter to me. I'm going to just read it. You know, everybody else's consensus was that they wanted to read it and it's science fiction romance and I'm not going to say no. So yeah, so I mean, I was, you know, I didn't think the cover was terrible and I'll be the first one to say if I don't like it or I don't think it looks professional, you know, I'll be like, that doesn't look right. But, you know, it was very professional. It looked well done. And the blurb was, you know, solid. It had all the things, like Ish said, that you want to know when you're reading a blurb, what to expect when, you know, what sort of the outline of the story or what you can expect. So when we were talking about whether or not to read the book, you know, those were the kind of things that I looked at to decide. Elle, was there anything particular that caught your attention or made you say yes?
Well, since I'm going last, everybody kind of like said what I was planning on saying. If you can see the cover on my phone, this does scream science fiction romance. You can see big man abs and whatnot, planet, and so I like to read a lot of science fiction romance. So I was actually sold on the cover before I read the blurb, and I do like that the main character is, you know, wildly intelligent, and yeah, this would be a podcast if one of my family members didn't walk behind me. They're intelligent. She was intelligent and curvy, and that really sold me. And I didn't read the blurb or the sample. So, but Paulina recommended the book, and I was like, hell yeah, abs. So we can. that was as much thought as I put into agreeing to read this one.
Okay. Now that we have that the abs out of the way, woohoo, abs. Kind of get into more of the meat of the story. Like first we're gonna talk about like what we did like about the book, just because I think a lot of I was going through the reviews and a lot of you know they kind of leave out kind of what they like. So I want to put that in there. I can honestly say I like the beginning of the story. Like it grabbed me, it pulled me in. She was a good character. At the beginning, she's really strong. She needed to stand up to her boss a little bit more, but in the end, I mean, I liked her personality. I really did. It was kind of quirky. It was down hard. I'm gonna work. This is what I'm doing. You know, she had goals in life. She's going somewhere. She had a really quirky friend, you know, who they played well off of each other. Kind of wish she got more play. before everything happened. But I mean, I can see why she didn't. But I mean, still, I like their dynamic they had together. When Tordin showed up, I did like him. Because who doesn't like a man who's bigger, stronger, and better looking than any man on earth? And so that was my big thing. His warriors, they were interesting. I wanted to know a little bit more about some of them. I still kind of do. Get into that later, though. I did. Yeah, I'm gonna say that's about all I liked. I like their personalities. We're gonna go with that. Ish, what did you like about the book?
It was well written. The writing was very nice. It was thought out. It was, you know, if they didn't get the sores happy like I've seen before, you wouldn't believe how much that happens. I think I did not finish it. Okay, and we'll go into that later. But from what I did read, it went in a nice order. You know, it did tell the story chronologically, you know, as it should have happened. But that's really all I have to say about the book per se is the technical. It's written nicely. It's good writing. It's not crap by any means. So we'll discuss the rest of what I don't like later.
Amy, your turn.
Okay, so we all know that, like I said, I'm a snob, and I admit that I am a snob, especially when it comes to books. I will tell you what I liked about the story. I thought that the authors, the grasp of how they set up the plot line was pretty good. So everything was very linear, like Ish said, and it all made sense to me how each thing happened. You know, each scene kind of fed into the next. So you weren't scratching your head like, well, how the hell did they get here? You know, they were just 5 seconds over here. So I think the author had a really good grasp of like the storyline and the plot and what was happening from beginning to end. And so I was never confused, and it is well written, and the words made sense, and, you know, the sentences were well structured, and it had all those writing, you know, little tidbits that, and we're all in this group authors, but we're also all readers. So sometimes our author side kind of slips into our reader side, and we're like, oh, well, they should have put, you know, the sentence structured this way or that way. But I didn't have any of that in this book. I didn't worry too much about that. And I thought the craft itself of the writing was pretty good. I liked the characters. I'm going to say I liked the characters in general. We'll get into my own persnickety little things about the characters later. But I think in general, I had a pretty good grasp of who the characters were, how they related to one another. It kind of leads into some of the negative things that I will say later, but the characters themselves, and not so much their personalities, because that's one of the things that I'm going to have to talk about later, but more like the way she presented the characters to the reader, I thought was good. And so I did want to relate to them. And I did want to know more about them as the story progressed. So I thought all of those things were really good, and it had the bones to, as far as structure and craft and all those things go, to be a really good book. Elle, what about you?
So I think the world building in this book was done fairly well. The alien race, this book starts in Tordin's point of view. And so it goes into a lot about his society. Oh my goodness. Can someone take over?
So Elle had a little small emergency really fast. So we'll come back to her positive point of view. So you want to mention something else? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I know where she was going with this. As you guys know, I'm an editor, and like Elle was saying, the world building, it's good. And like I said, everything that is set up in the book, content-wise, writing-wise, it is very well portrayed. So I think where Elle was going is that the basics for the story, the world, the plot, the characterization, it really is all there. And it's there very well, which once again, I don't get to say that a lot sometimes. You know, whoever their editor was, her editor was, did a very good job, you know, making sure it was there as well as the writing. The one thing I think I was going to say, though, is, and I bet, is that world was there, and it was very well, but there were just a few smidgens here and there. So I bet you that's where she's going with later, you know, that you need to fill in. So what were you going to say?
Well, we're going to get back to her way, but moving a little bit forward, to talk a little bit about, I was thinking we should probably break up the characters, you know, the two main characters, talk about Kyra and Tordin. We can talk about them together if you want, or you can talk about them separately. I kind of seen them as two separate beings. I didn't see them developing a romance, only because I'm going to show that thought really fast. Elle, you want to finish your thought real fast?
Sure, before someone else interrupts me. So, good world building. I liked Tordin. I liked his restraint. I like Kyra, because she was intelligent. I will preface this, I've only got through 60% of the book because I got sick and then my kids got sick, so it's just really hard for me to find the time to read this week, so I don't know how it ends. I'm going to assume well. So, but those are my 2 points. That I start out liking both the main characters, which is obviously good because you want people to like your main characters, and I like the world building. I thought that I didn't find myself questioning why things were happening the way that they were, because the author explained it in such a way that it wasn't confusing or overwhelming. And go.
Yeah, okay, sorry about that. I was trying to get the mute button off. I guess now the next thing we can dive into is kind of like, I know we all mentioned, and what we liked about it was was something about the characters, and I kind of want to dive into that a little bit more, because I did start out loving them. I loved her. I mean, because first of all, as you can tell in this group, we're not small women, so finding a sexy, curvy, confident woman is very hard, or strong, but it's very hard to find. And so I went into this going, yeah, and in the beginning chapters, I was like, damn, she's amazing. And then she meets the main character, and she turns into a fucking raging idiot. And my whole, like, I kept flipping, going, maybe she'll get her, oh, look, she got her, you know, her confidence. Oh, never mind. Oh, look, never mind. And so I kind of spent the book kind of going, well, when are you going to get your power? When are you going to get your confidence back? Oh, wait, no. And so I think that kind of pulled me away and made me hate her, only because I'm dating a guy who's really, really buff, and he can carry tires, and I don't run around going, oh my God, look at me. Oh, he's so cute, but what? And I kind of feel that she should have been a little bit more confident in her deliveries and just in herself. She should have been more confident. And so that was kind of my take on her. And then he didn't get enough playtime. Like, she started out, you know, very strong. He had his viewpoints, but then she kind of deviated, and it went to almost all her point of views. He had like maybe 3 more chapters. I can't remember of his point of view, and I kind of lost touch with him too. So I kind of was like, I didn't care anymore. I mean, I read it to the end, but I didn't care anymore because I didn't hear any more of his feelings. Like, what was he feeling towards her? I heard what she was feeling towards him and how insecure she was. So it was, yes, I liked the characters in the beginning, but then I kind of lost contact with them, and I was just kind of reading to hurry up and get to the finish. And I'll mention things about the setting and stuff later. Right now, we're just going to focus on the characters. So who wants to go first on characters? Okay, Amy.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of how I can say this nicely. I didn't like her from the very first page. And I can tell you exactly why. Because the first thought she has is how fat the pants make her ass look. And that, I was like, okay, this bitch is stupid. Like, just like 2 seconds later, you're supposed to like have been to MIT and you work on a space station and all you care about is how ugly you look in these damn khaki pants. Like, okay, your boss just rubbed himself all over your butt, but it's because he picked a uniform that makes your ass look big. Okay. Like, I just didn't care. And then and I'm going to spoil this for anybody who didn't read the book or hasn't read the book or whatever, but he fires her because she throws coffee on him. She should have beat him over the head with the coffee cup, in my opinion, but he fires her and she goes meekly to her room and says, oh, I guess I'm going back to Earth. Damn. And I'm like, okay, so you're super smart. You've made it all the way here. You're one of the few women of color on this ship. And you just got sexually harassed, but you're not going to stand up for yourself. And you're not going to say, this asshole just, touches me every time we're alone. Is somebody going to do something? No, you're going to go meekly back to your cabin and wait to be transported back to Earth. Like, that didn't make any sense to me. So here I am, like, in the very beginning of the book, and I'm like, oh, this isn't going well. So I'm still reading, and this big catastrophe happens. And, she gets called to the commander's office, and she goes in there, and the commander says, oh, he gives her heaps all this praise on her, and we're so sorry this happened, and, we've been running the security footage, and we saw everything he did to you, and we're so sorry, and then, oh my God, the ship's crashing because this guy's a complete fool and he drove it into an asteroid belt. And she's like, oh, let me fix it, and then she jumps in there with her Felix, fix-it hammer, and supposedly everything's going to get better, but it doesn't because she can't fix what he screwed up. But at the same time, they're still heaping all these compliments on her. And all the men in the room are like entranced by how wonderful she is, but she's too worried about how big her ass is, or how fat she is, or how much chocolate she can or can't have, or the fact that she's not on a diet. See, that's another thing that irritates me. Let me tell you, she goes in and has this conversation with her best friend, Phoebe, who happens to be my favorite character in the book and is in a coma the whole goddamn time. But she's having a conversation with Phoebe in her room, and she's like, oh, we're not like the rest of the women on this ship. We don't go on the diet. We eat as much chocolate as we can. Oh, but my ass is so fat. Okay, because you ate all the chocolate you wanted to eat. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I just had no sympathy for her. Okay, so that's Kyra. We'll just and there's one point in the book, and later on we'll get to this, I'm sure. But there's one point in the book, and I actually messaged the girls in the chat, and I said, if she says the word ring one more time, I'm going to stop reading. Because she's like, oh, he's professed his love to me and we're mates, but I think I need a ring. Oh, it doesn't mean anything unless he gives me a ring. You know what? I really think I need a ring. This guy should give me a ring. I think I should get a ring. Bitch, get a ring. Like, Jesus Christ. I wanted to shut the book off at that point, but I was like, nope, I'm going to finish it. I'm going to finish it. So, yeah. And then as we go to Tordin, like Paulina said, he has no page time whatsoever. The very first scene is in his point of view. A couple of scenes later in his point of view. I actually thought he was kind of a nice guy. He's a little bit soft, in my opinion. And the things that he does or does not do for his brother, that's a whole different thing. Yeah, I don't know. I felt like he worshipped her, and we'll get into this later, but the theme of insta-love, which is a problem with a lot of writers who write romance. It was here in this book. You don't just see somebody, and you can't, and sometimes if you don't do a good job of explaining this like secret connection that people have with each other, she tries to explain it away with, oh, the goddess put them together. That doesn't fly with me, folks. I want to see them actually have a relationship and fall in love to call it romance. So, yeah, didn't care for that either. But that's how I feel about the characters of this book. So I'm going to let someone else talk about them and how they felt. Which one of you guys wants to go next? Okay, it's just saying she does.
Oh my god, I don't know how I could follow that up, because that's pretty much everything I was gonna say right from the beginning. I'm like, oh, you know what? Hey, she's super smart. She's like this engineer, but my butt's too big. I let that slide. I have gained weight as I've gotten older. I'm still pretty confident. I don't care what you say. I'm a sexy bitch. I don't care. I know I am. End of story. But once in a while, I'm like, wish I could still wear those size 12 jeans. So I understand that as a woman. But then it got to the point that, and at the point where after the incident where, she throws the coffee on her boss with, once again, I'm with you, I'd beat the living crap out of him. You're rubbing your cock all over my ass all the time. I have issues. I'm sorry. That's not harassment anymore. That's freaking assault. And she's this, once again, uber smart super woman. Why is she taking that? Why hasn't she told anybody that? That to me is unbelievable. How many times in this day and age are women going to put up with that? Especially a younger, successful woman. Not too long, if at all. I know I wouldn't. I pretty wouldn't. And I hope to God my daughters wouldn't. So Kyra, but I kept reading. But it got to the point where after she gets escorted back to her room by security, she's talking to her best friend Phoebe. And by the end of that chapter, I knew more about Phoebe than I did Kyra. Everything I knew about Kyra came from a comparison to how awesome Phoebe was. I'm like, why don't you just throw Phoebe down and do her? Because obviously you're entranced with her. I mean, that's really how it was to me. It's like she was secretly in love with Phoebe and had no clue. None. So that just really started to irritate me. And you know what? I didn't even realize she was a woman of color until almost 20% in, when it was mentioned when she was comparing herself to Phoebe. I'm like, oh. So, I mean, I guess I got to rethink. And then my whole mind was just screwed from there, because for the first 3 freaking chapters in my head. And then every time it was mentioned, of her skin color and her skin tone, I'm like, it threw me out, because I did not know that information soon enough. I don't associate big, curvy, and beautiful automatically with a woman of color. I don't. I wasn't raised that way. I just whatever came to mind. I knew she was a beautiful woman. I knew she was curvy, but I didn't know she was, she was black. So I had to, every time it was mentioned, I had to stop and repicture the character in my head, and that threw me out of the story. I didn't make it past the incident on the space station. So the only character reference I have for Tordin is the very first chapter, his very first point of view. And he was almost childlike to me. He was, I mean, not like an immature child, but almost, oh, my brother's in trouble again. I guess I'm going to have to go rescue him again, because I'm a good boy. I had other plans. It was almost forced at some point during that. And I'm like, oh, he's not seeming very alpha to me. I'd be like, the fuck is that little weasel done now? Oh my God. Exactly. He's just being a boy and doing what he does. So I haven't met Tordin's character later on because I quit reading. But based off of the little glimpse I got of him, I'm not sure I'm going to like him if I continued. So that's my character definitions at the moment.
So I had the same reaction at the beginning. I was a little confused why someone so highly educated and driven was allowing herself to be treated that way. I mean, I understand putting up with some crap to get advancement, but yeah, when his name was Brantley, brushed up against her. I'm non-combative, but I would have hit the guy. I would have smashed him in the face with my coffee mug. So we've covered that, and Amy's tirade was, you know, spot on. So later in the book, after she was rescued, and I might add, not by Tordin. She was actually not rescued by Tordin. She was rescued by his crew. He did not enter that ship at all. So I was kind of disappointed because he wasn't actually doing the rescuing aside from commanding his crew to go rescue these people. And so he tells her that they've left Earth. They've left orbit. They are heading in another direction, moving beyond the speed of light. And she's not going to be able to go back to Earth. And she's like, okay. Wait a minute. The author explains that she doesn't have family to go back to. I understand that. But you've got to have more friends than Phoebe, even if Phoebe's your best friend. And how can she just be like, okay, well, I guess we're not going back to Earth. We're not going back to my apartment or my university that I spent so much time and money for getting a degree, or her entire world has disappeared. Her reality and knowledge of physics is now gone. And she's like, okay. I was like, what? She must be in shock. She must be in shock because she's going to later wake up and be like, holy fuck, I'm not on Earth anymore. And husband, abs. Yep, there we go. And yeah, so she was just kind of like, I would not react that way. And I stopped relating with the character at that point, where I was like, you can't just blow off the fact that you're not going to be able to go back to your home planet, where the only planet that you've ever lived on, because this is in a setting where humanity has a better space program than we have now, but I don't think they've gone outside of our galaxy yet, and they have not made first contact with any other alien race. So I think that the author could have described the alien race a little bit better, and her Kyra's reaction to finding out that she's not going home anymore. And I have to say this because there have been some issues where plot elements were thrown in kind of at random just to make it work going forward. Kyra said that she didn't have any family to go back to, but the part where I left off was a confrontation with Brantley. That's kind of like 65% into the book, where all of a sudden she's getting overwhelmed with emotions from when her parents died in a drunken car accident, and she was in the back seat. I'm like, well, you know, this could have been I don't know, alluded to earlier. There was just a lot of elements that were just randomly thrown in to make the plot work. And like Ishabelle said, there was a lot of details that I didn't find out about the character until much later in the book, where I had already put together kind of a mental picture. I missed that she was a person of color. Whenever I read a book, it's the person is like me, you know, white, brunette, blue-eyed, me. And I think everybody does that. I think everyone picks up a book and says, this main character is like me. They've had the same life experiences. They've had, they have the same type of education, whatever, unless it's specifically stated. And yeah, I totally missed that she was a person of color, because you get off the bat that she's voluptuous, curvy, well-educated, and driven. And then details were either pounded into your mind too much to the point where you're like, okay, we get it, move on, new thing. And I've been making comments in my Kindle about things that are like, okay, move on. Like the first scene with Brantley, where he rubbed up against her. First, you actually have the author describing what happened, like the physical events that took place, and then you have the character mentally going through the events that took place. I'm like, we don't need it twice. So either combine these so that you get the physical and the mental things happening at the same time, or get rid of it altogether. Because like there was a lot of things that were just repeated, that didn't need to be repeated, and elements left out until they were absolutely needed and then thrown in. and I got thrown out of the story because I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that Kyra's parents had been killed in an accident. You know what I mean? So I think I'll stop there because I can keep going into a bunch of other things that are not character related.
All right, so let's look at the world building, because that's kind of a big issue when it comes to space travel, sci-fi, fantasy, kind of, you know, romance books. Even though they don't go into as in depth as you know, if it's a hard sci-fi or high hard fantasy, these still have to be kind of believable. So some of the things in the world maybe that we didn't really catch on to or didn't believe in. Kind of a long list, but I'll keep it really short to the main 3 things I didn't, or I might go over 3, who knows. Anyways, so 1, when they first come in and and she notices that they're talking to themselves, like there's a low mumble, she literally says they're self-vocalizing. How does she know? And until they explain it, until he gives her that little disc to put behind her ear, she has no idea what they're doing, but yet she keeps saying it. Oh, they're self-vocalizing. How do you know? I mean, come on, dude, seriously. Like, just little things like that. And I know she's an engineer and a really good one, but we don't have that on our planet. We don't know that. So that was one thing that I just kind of kept getting angry at it, like that little twitch that you get in your you know, yeah, Mom, stop. Was just the fact that you shouldn't know that. So stop talking about it. Another thing that I just rubbed me 5 days to Sunday was that stupid water. I am sorry. I understand that it's supposed to be our, what was it called? Our water of life or fountain of youth or whatever the fuck that shit was. It was driving me nuts. You drink it, you breathe it, you wash in it, what the fuck? I'm like, what? Like, it didn't make any sense. I think it was more like one of those things that you throw in a book that solves all issues. Oh, you need to be cuter. Here's some water. You're dehydrated. Here's some water. You need to wash. Here's some water. Oh, but you can also breathe this water. I'm like, but if it literally cleaned her, like when she walked into the pool, it cleaned her, but then her friend was in it and she was breathing it, but then you drink it. I'm like, yeah, guys, no, it can't be an all-consuming water. But it wasn't really water because it didn't leave you wet when you got out. I don't know. So, and the more she drank it, the more in tune she was. And I was just like, dude, shut up. Just stop it with the water. Like always handing her water, and all of a sudden whatever problem was going on was fixed. So it kind of I'm sorry. I know. So, okay, maybe I'll just do 2 points because there was some more. Maybe the next the next cycle I'll go over some of the other things, but those are my 2 main big pet peeves, was her knowing what she shouldn't have known and that fucking water. So, yeah, Amy, you have yeah, let's go ahead, Amy.
Okay, so I agree with you about the water. I felt like it was a catch-all, fix-all. You know, I'm tired, let me drink this water. Your days are twice as long as ours, let me drink this water. It all makes me better, let me drink this water. So I kind of felt like it was, like you said, it was like a deus ex machina. It was there to fix all the issues. My biggest issue as far as world building went, and I'll try to keep this short because I know people have places to be, but the unction, it was mentioned like a gazillion times, but it was never explained. And if you read what the definition of unction is, it's like this deep and meaningful pull or feeling that you have that you are meant for a specific purpose. And in the book, I understand, and I got it, and it's a fairly simple idea that the goddess, who is, you know, the creator goddess, the feminine mystique, whatever you want to call her, gives life, and then she gives you this. If you're, you know, a special person, she gives you this unction, this special purpose. I get that. I totally understood that point. However, it was lackluster for me in a science fiction book. As a science fiction romance author, I like hard sci-fi. I like my tech. I like my science. And when you start putting religion and science together, sometimes you get that feeling that you've left the realm of science fiction romance and you've kind of scooted on over into fantasy romance. And I kind of felt like we were nudging over toward fantasy romance. And as a science fiction reader, and as we're reading about an alien race, and I get the fact that the goddess, you know, is important. And I like that part. You know, I thought, okay, it gives, you know, a good, like, hint to their belief system, like these people that you don't know anything about from the other side of the galaxy or the universe or whatever. But I still felt like she was real light on the science for a science fiction romance, for the whole world building part. She relied a whole heck of a lot on this magic water that she never explained in a scientific way whatsoever, and this goddess to give you a purpose, which could have been explained with biochemistry, with pheromones, tons of other scientific explanation that would make me feel like I was reading a science fiction romance novel, as opposed to, oh, the goddess did it. You know, you two are together because the goddess says you are. And that's awesome, and I get it. Sometimes that's what you have to do, but she was really, really light on the science. And I know some people don't like science, and I get that, but I need a little bit of it to make it more believable as far as world building goes. How does your ship run? How does it stay in the air? Is it the special water holding you up? Like, you know, like, is that your fuel too? Do you burn it? Do you breathe it? Do you bathe in it? Do you do everything in it? You know, like, I want to know those things just to give me an idea. And then when they do get to the planet, and Elle, you probably didn't make it to this part of the book, but when they get to the planet at the end of the book, he's been, they get, all of a sudden she throws a villain in there. It's not the brother. She tosses in a villain you never met before, you know nothing about. He's suddenly all powerful, and he's a threat. And guess who comes to save the day? It's not her. It's the goddess. So I felt like it was a cop-out, and I felt like it was just, and that's one of those things where you said sometimes there were things just thrown in to make the plot work. He was just tossed in there to give her a way to save the day. And once again, no science involved. It was all the goddess. So that kind of bugged the crap out of me. Okay. Elle's raising her hand.
I didn't have a problem with the water, really, until Paulina pointed out that it's kind of the solution for just about every problem that you would face as a human trying to acclimate to an alien type of environment. I thought it was clever that she had alluded to the fact that the alien race had been to Earth and tried to share their magic water. And it was called the Fountain of Youth and whatnot. I thought that was clever to tie in like that. But yeah, I could have used a little bit more of an explanation as to what it was. I do believe that an advanced civilization would still have religion, and it may not be 100% explained by science. But I noticed a lot of the details were glazed over. There was a lot of, you know, author hat on, there was a lot of telling versus showing. And if the author would have taken the time to show certain scenes, the science could have been there to explain how the ship was running. You know, what the water was actually made of. I mean, I was exactly sure what Kyra's focus was as far as her degree, but why the hell didn't she look at this crap under a microscope or try to, you know, hey, what is in this stuff that is making my body, you know, perform at peak capacity or whatever. So Kyra could have questioned everything around her, and yeah, there could have been a little bit more science, and a lot more like alluding to, this is not world building, but alluding to, well, kind of the unction that you were talking about. It was just kind of like, I understand what it is. It was kind of explained, but there was a scene like where Kyra passed out during the rescue, and then suddenly we're in a sex scene, and I actually had to go back and make sure I hadn't skipped a bunch of the book, because suddenly we're having a sex scene and the main characters haven't actually met yet, which was one of my big beefs. Was like, I'm 40% into this romance novel and the main characters haven't even met. What the hell? Because you're supposed to do introduction male, introduction female, and it's called meet cute. It's when the two characters meet for the first time and there's a sense that, hey, these two can get along and fall in love and live happily ever after. And I'm like, we're 40% in and none of that crap has happened. We're in a sex scene, and then it's later revealed that this is a dream sequence, and it's caused by the unction, that the reason these two are supposed to get together. But apparently she's been having these sex dreams for a while now, and she's never made mention of it. But that explains why she's suddenly so attracted to Tordin, because it's unction. I'm like, well, you could have built up to it a little bit more. The unction would have made more sense. The fated mate's instant love would have made more sense. And I can see where the author is going, because there's obviously unction between, I think it's Malm and Phoebe. That's obviously there, but it could have been done better. Ish.
I didn't get as far as you ladies did because I'm busy. I have a lot to do. Between life and work, I felt no pull to run back to the book, to hurry up and make the deadline. So I didn't get as far as you ladies because it just wasn't there to make me want to just, I don't have to do this right now. I'm going to go read this book. It just wasn't there. But what I did read, as far as world building, I didn't have a problem with. And that could be because I'm not far enough to actually have the questions you guys, came up with. Well, how the hell is this station running? I don't know anything about magic water at this point. So, I don't have that insight. But what I read was satisfactory as far as world building so far, because I was still in the beginning. So I really don't have any complaints toward it because it was all there. My issue mostly is, and I just can't relate to the characters at this point. So that's it for me.
Okay. We're gonna have to wrap this one up a little bit. We got started a little late today, but from overall, what I'm reading is give the book a try. You might like it. It looks like we're giving it a solid 2.5. It looks like almost right now. We're gonna go with 2.5 for all of us. Our reviews are up on Goodreads and on, well, mine's up on Amazon and Goodreads. Yeah, Amazon and Goodreads. So if no one else has anything else to say, because I know one person has to get Thai food, somebody else has to get more Thai food. That's me. And some others have to get to editing, reading, and watching TV. We want to thank you for joining us. If you like the podcast, please like, comment, and share. This has been episode 22, and good night, y'all.